Are you a yes or a no? Us, we're just here for the next 2 hours of Implicit Bias Radio. Now, it's gonna be a crazy couple of hours as we get into this week's episode of Implicit Bias, trying to solve the problems of the world one or a couple dozen weekly whiskeys at a time. So we need to know, are you in or are you out? Are you a yes or are you a no, maybe more accurately? See, this week's episode won't be for the faint of heart. We're going to tackle some stories head on, head first, and full tilt. So there's a lot going on right now in 2025. 2025, as a matter of fact, just continues to 2025, which means that since the last episode of this show, we've almost started and then ended World War III. We've seen political assassination inside the United States, which, by the way, most of us seem to have forgotten about that by now. The state of Florida is making a Sharknado version of Alcatraz, and we've had no King's Day, organized, sponsored, attended by, statistically, well, no one. And of course, we've learned, once again, that the conspiracy theorists were right. The FBI now telling us that fake ballots were in fact injected into the 2020 presidential election. It's been said before that, quote, these are the times that try men's souls. And while the Thomas Paine quote certainly applied at the time of the American Revolution, we may be experiencing a revolution of our own right now. The world's governments are certainly being turned on their heads. The question is, however, by what? See, we've got plenty of pansies in the United States crying about every little thing they don't like, throwing a 40-year-old temper tantrum. Maybe next they'll hold their breath until they get their way. But I will give them this. Those people, the ones that weren't paid to show up for all of this other stuff, they have let their yes mean yes and their no mean no. Now, the question to them may have been, are you devoid of logical thought? But regardless, at least their answer and their conviction is yes. This is why we're asking if you're with us, and if your yes means yes, or your no means no. And this is the crazy part. It's not the crazies who represent a very small percentage of the population who are actually changing the world. It's the conviction of you. It's the conviction of us that's actually driving them to this insane behavior and driving change on the globe today. And while it's a little hectic right now, there's a lot of reason for hope. See, we've known for centuries that conviction and faith would be needed for change. If we wanted to make the world better, Jesus actually told his disciples, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. Not only was Jesus noting that we should be true to our word, what he was really telling us and really noting was that full conviction is mandatory for change, not just in others, but maybe in ourselves. See, we've said it before. We've said yes to trying to fight the evil of progressive leftism, but did we really mean it? Sure, we think we did, but were we truly convicted in our yes? And that is the hard part. Too many times we say yes, and we think we're all in, but we don't completely follow through. This is the difference in what's changing the world today. Conviction to faith, conviction to family, to children, to the rule of law, to our Constitution, to future generations. Now, I'm not going to speak for others here in the TSPL. I'm not going to speak for you, our listeners. So what I'll say is this. Too often I've said yes, but it's only a partial yes, not a fully convicted yes. Now, however, our yes is ripping the Band-Aid off of our societal boo-boos. The children, they're the ones crying about it, but the adults have maybe, just maybe recognized that we finally need to let our yes be fully our yes if we're going to create a future that's worthy of our children, our grandchildren, and yes, even the boomers acting like 5-year-olds all over Facebook, our streets, and of course, all the early bird specials all across the land. Don't worry. We're giving you our yes too. That we can guarantee this, a full yes. It's to the question, and maybe it's to this question, will we have weekly whiskey? You damn right. That's coming up when we continue with conviction Implicit Bias Radio. It's weekly whiskey time on Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, and man, from during the break, the crew needs a weekly whiskey or 5. It's just been one of those years here on what? It's not even on Implicit Bias Radio. Implicit Bias Radio's had a great 2025, but it's just been 2025 has been tough. What has not been tough is rating our weekly whiskeys, which is where we're going to dive in. So let me introduce you to the crew that we have here with us this week in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair, located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. So let's start at the bar. Person on your right, he is one of only 15 certified master tobacconists in the world. He is Rene Girard. Rene, it's glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
You know what's actually really interesting? I thought it was funny when you said you learned how to control some things because you don't let Caleb pour for you anymore.
Yeah.
I was going to note we haven't had a drunk uncle appearance in a while.
Because I pour my own now.
Okay. I mean, I did catch you going after that Pure Kentucky a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but it was still short. My new nickname's going to be Short Pour because I do true short pours, unlike Short Pour, who does not do short pour.
But he complains about short pours.
Exactly.
He doesn't have short pours.
When he pours his own.
Correct. So, yeah, Rene, glad to have you. Sitting at the bar with Rene, he is Grant Galatis of William S. Nacall Jewelers. Sitting right in front of him is our beautiful Deep Blue, the Implicit Bias Infinity Bottle. Beautiful lead-free crystal, which I know that we've gone through Father's Day. Y'all might have, 1 or 2 of those left, if you have any of them left at all?
None left.
None left. So if you...
I could see if I could track you one down, but as of right now, none left.
Well, so here's the deal. I've got one. We've got one here in the studio, and that means that if you would like one, you got to go see Grant at what? 38, and I'm going to... 3802 Johnston Street, yeah.
That's in Gambino.
I know it was close. Yep, 3802 Johnston Street. You can go see William S. Nacall Jewelers. Sitting in the chair like mine, he is the Rustic Renegade, back with us again this week, and a fresh shirt, I see.
Yeah, it's still got the creases from where it was.
Which is hanging on the rack in your
Hanging
shop.
on the rack. This is my third shirt of the day. You know, it's what happens whenever it's 100 and holy crap outside. I saw that other states are having roads buckle.
I saw that. It was video out of Missouri, I think.
I was talking to a guy in Maine today or yesterday. And he's like, it's 102. It's the first time in Maine. He told me this could be a lot, but first time in Maine, it's been in triple digits since like 1970, maybe. And I was like, oh, wow, good for you. That's every day.
Yep.
Every day for us.
Pretty much every day here. So what do we do to cool off? We sit inside and we sip weekly whiskeys. Before we go to the whiskey that we are sipping this week from our weekly whiskey partner, we do have one more person. He's not on camera. We took him off camera on purpose. He is Walker Griffon, who was on it last week. Walker, man, you were editing stuff early last week. I was impressed.
Yeah, I mean, just getting the job done. Glad to be here.
It's about time. So thank you. Yeah, we're glad that you're able to do it. And you actually have a glass of this weekly whiskey on the table, right? On the production studio table is sitting a glass of this Sazerac. Now, this is a store pick. This is the normal run-of-the-mill Sazerac rye. We like ryes on this show. We have, you might even say, an affinity for ryes on this show. Why? Because ryes are a little more peppery, they're a little more aggressive, and that's really the kind of flavor profile that we like. So everybody's got a pour. Rene, you've got your pour. You did not get a neck pour for this one. I'm curious as to how much you like this. I want to tell somebody what I think you're going to say, because I think you're going to really like this one, and I'll say why in a minute.
Okay.
Do you really like it?
Yes.
Yes.
It's probably a little light on the proof for me.
That's exactly why you like it.
But I do like it. Yeah, because I'm not a rocket fuel kind of guy.
It's something that a wuss would drink. So yeah.
Exactly. Hey, but Drunkle's not here, so it's okay.
No, it is okay.
But
look,
also
you like
the flavors on this one, it's not a real peppery rye either.
No.
I mean, it doesn't have the typical pepper that ryes do. It's very enjoyable for me. I like this one.
I figured you were going to really like this. And this is a pick from New News Market here in the Lafayette area. For those who are looking for it, you actually have to come to Lafayette. You've got to go to Maurice. You've got to go to Scott. You've got to go to Youngsville. You've got to go to Milton. You got to go find these locations out there. But this is a pick of a Sazerac rye for them. Normal Sazerac rye, I'm not normally bought in on. Yeah. This one's a little different. So to hear a little different, we're going to go to Walker first, and then we're going to go to Grant at the bar. Walker, what do you think of this?
I enjoy this one. Like you said with the rye, you get the peppery. I don't know. I wasn't listening about the proof, but it can't be too high. At least it doesn't taste it. And I feel it's refreshing. That's kind of what I'm tasting.
Refreshing.
Like it doesn't go down hard. I don't know. That's just what I think.
I'm not saying it.
I almost
I'm not
said
saying it. Yeah, I know you did. All right. No, I agree. The drinkability on this it's high. This is an easy drinker. This is one that's a great start to the night. Grant, what do you think?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's a perfect evening starter.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm as big a fan of the rye. I mean, this thing, it's got legs. It's sitting just stuck on the side of the glass. So it puts that flavor in my throat and just leaves it there for a little while. Again, evening starter, probably can't even be 100 proof. But it's not a bad taste. I'll agree with Walker over there. I think it is a refreshing way to start your evening before you get something a little more serious.
Yeah, I don't know that it necessarily hits refreshing for me, right? I mean, it is not a whiskey that sits heavy on the palate. Maybe I think is where you're going.
Well, just because of the rye and the lighter proof. I mean, it doesn't really. We like something here around the table that it's got 110, 115, and really lets you know that that it's there. But this one is it's a couple of steps above rum and coke.
So I'll tell you what I think jumps out at me about this one, and tell me if what I'm tasting and what I'm getting off of this particular whiskey fits what you're talking about. I get more of a light honey off of this that is bright, a little more acidic on the palate. So that while it's not necessarily refreshing, it doesn't sit heavy on the palate and give you those deep, dark flavors that you normally expect with a whiskey, a bourbon, a rye. Normally, our wheelhouse is like a 6-year rye when we're drinking rye, and it's normally 115 proof. Those flavors have consolidated significantly when you're tasting something that's that old. This might be 4 years. It might be right at 4. It's probably a blend. I mean, it's just the straight Sazerac. It comes out of Buffalo Trace. But it's still really good. It is, to your point, on the lighter side of whiskey. I wouldn't call it full on a summer whiskey, as we had referred to a lot of whiskeys in years past. I don't think this is that, but it's just not heavy as it goes down, and it doesn't weigh you down as you taste it. Is that kind of what you're picking up?
Pretty much. I mean, I couldn't even pull the honey out of this thing. Basically, I couldn't get, and I don't know why. I'm just having trouble pulling any taste out of it. Usually because I know it's a rye, and before I even drink it, it's a rye. So the first thing I'm going to hit is the pepper.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's masked for me after that or what.
I should have not told you it was a rye to see if you were able to pick that up, because there's some bias there, right? I mean, there's some bias about, it's a rye, I don't like rye, and I know you like rye.
But without the rye bite, and if it had a little bit of honey or a little bit of caramel, and it's a little bit smoother, I noticed that now. That's one of the first things that I noticed. But with that rye bite, it lets me know that it's a rye.
Okay. All right, Renee, I think I get the feeling you wanted to chime in here for a second.
Yeah, Grant said he wouldn't have known, except that on the bottle it says Sazerac Rye, big white letters. I mean, but one of the things about this whiskey, I think that if you have somebody who, I know some people that, I can't drink whiskey, it's just too strong.
Yeah, this
is definitely what you want to get them on, because it is definitely not too strong for somebody who's never had a whiskey. It is a very good whiskey to start with. I don't know if I would use it for mixes and stuff. I'm not a big mix guy. I like whiskey. If I'm going to drink whiskey, I like to taste the whiskey.
So here's what I am going to say. If you want refreshing, this makes a Sazerac cocktail that is off the charts. I actually have a bottle of this at home. I picked it up to use it as a mixer because it doesn't have a lot of proof, but it's got good flavor. I know Sazerac rye, you kind of know the flavor profile. When I tell you that, especially with, and I'm gonna give a shout out to my buddy Alex Saison, if you use the Sirop de Claire to make a Sazerac with this, and you get that really thin slice of lemon peel, and when you mix it with absinthe in the glass or herb saint in the glass, the aromatics that come off of this as a chilled cocktail are off the charts fantastic.
So in other words, you're saying it is refreshing.
In a cocktail, with all the other mixes.
Oh, okay. So you got to add something to make it refreshing.
Yeah,
okay.
But it is lighter on the palate to me. It is more of closer to a summer whiskey profile. So all that being said, now Caleb, do you just want to wreck shop here? Because that's normally what you do when we sample
I'm not
whiskey.
going to wreck shop with this.
Oh, please. You can feed that line to somebody else.
On the nose, I get snickerdoodle cookies.
And there it is.
Like not baked, but while they're baking, where it's still very aromatic, filling the house warm. I get snickerdoodle cookie on the nose. That's all I get. The first sip out the gate, I get heavy caramel. It's viscous. It's got tension on the liquid. And then I wrote down menthol, but not menthol flavor. It has a finish of menthol. And then it dawned on me, this is a honeysuckle spearmint. That's what I have written down as honeysuckle spearmint.
I get the honeysuckle. Yes, and that's where I said the light honey.
Yep.
So I think we're jiving there.
And then the spearmint is the pepper because it's very light. It's not aggressive, and I get like a spearmint, not the minty side, but almost the minty sensation, if that makes sense. And I think, look, I'm not a big Sazerac rye fan. I like ryes. This has never been something that I went toward. This one I can enjoy. This one I can drink. This is different, and I like the way that it's their barrel pick because it's going to have everything they all have, but a little bit better.
Yep. You get that when you get picks and when you get blends that are specific to stores, whether it's here or anywhere else a lot of times. Renee?
Yeah. So in other words, Caleb, what you're saying is the minty you're picking up is where the menthol sensation. It's the
Correct.
cool air.
So Renee's trying to prove that it's refreshing. That's all he's
Yes.
trying to do.
No, it is. Like, I think that this,
Yeah, but it was Walker that said it was
I
refreshing.
thought this would be really good, but like maybe I would like it chilled. Chill this with like run a mint inside your glass or something to accentuate that. I think it'd be really nice.
Almost like if you would do a mojito or a mint julep.
A mint
type.
julep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The crushed ice, the mint muddled. Yeah,
Okay.
I could see
All
that.
right, yeah.
I could see that. Even though a mint julep is supposed to be made with bourbon, you could do it with this and it would still play. I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
I think the
at
flavor
all.
would be really good together.
So I'm with you. I actually get caramel on this. I get some of that light honey on this. I don't necessarily get snickerdoodle.
You should.
But what I will say is this, the nose knows and Caleb knows. So, I mean, he's done a really good job of pulling out all the flavors on this. And you are essentially the Mr. Coach Klein of the offensive coordinator to our whiskey tasting group here, where you're like, the quarterback fakes. No, the quarterback thinks about faking. It tastes like menthol, but not menthol at the same time, right? This hurts me to say this. I understand what you're saying.
We have that connection. It's been years now, and
No.
it's hard to describe it, but you get the menthol sensation when you drink it.
You do get that vapor up through the nose, and it's not overpowering like menthol, but you do get that same type of sensation. That's why I'm like, I hate to admit this because you're actually right.
What were those cigarettes, Walker, that people would crush to get the menthol flavor in them? You don't know?
Come on, Walker.
No
We know
clue.
you know.
Oh,
Please.
Well, it's kind of like one of those.
Yeah, nice try. You actually did a nice job of trying to bait him there to see
I
where
thought he would
Walker
fall
would.
for it.
Yeah. All right, time to play. What would you pay for the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette? And where would you rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code? Remember, the code for those who are uninitiated to the show is red. I wouldn't drink it even if it was free. Yellow, I would only drink it if it was free. Green, I would buy this. Blue, I would seek this out. So let's start with Walker. Walker, first of all, where do you rate this and what would you pay?
I'm going to give it a blue.
Cool. Okay.
60.
Blue and $60. Let's go to the bar.
I'm going to give it a mint green. And I say $50.
$50. All right, Grant.
One thing I've noticed, and it's been pretty consistent over the years, is once everyone starts talking about how it would mix up nice and how you would enhance it to make it taste even better, that immediately disqualifies it as a blue for me. So it's going to get a green. It's got a good flavor profile, but not a high proof, not a lot of years in the barrel. So I'm going to say $42 for this.
$42. All right, Caleb.
This is a microphone would work. Thank you. This is a green for me.
Okay.
This is a solid green. I wrote it before we started talking. I want to say $47.
So we have officially 4 greens and a blue, which is a really nice rating palette for this whiskey because that's 4 people who would buy it and 1 who wants to seek this out. Now, what I will say, anytime you get a store pick like this, you got to buy it while you can find it because once it's gone, it's gone. And this may be the best expression of Sazerac rye I've ever had, shy of that BTAC, the Thomas Handy Sazerac rye, which people are paying, $900 for, $600 for. This, I'm going to tell you, is nowhere in that neighborhood. But I need to go back through this just so I make sure I get these numbers correct. Walker, you said 60.
Correct.
Renee, you said 50.
Correct.
Grant, you said 42.
Correct.
And Caleb, you said 47.
Good memory.
This bottle is $25.99. This is a $25.99 bottle of whiskey, which means, yes, Grant, that confused look on your face because you are closest to the hole, which means you've won the What Would You Pay Championship belt chain on this week's episode of Implicit Bias, presented by Buckstrop of Lafayette.
Yay.
We'll help you get the green off your neck when it's all over.
He's just overwhelmed.
Yes, he is. But
He sounded kind of whelmed.
here's the big talking point. And Walker's giving me the 1 minute finger. The big question I have is, are you not entertained that this is a $25 bottle of whiskey, $26?
That is ridiculous.
I would definitely buy it for that. Yes.
Well,
I
you
would
rated
buy
it a
that.
green. I mean, of course you would buy it,
I would
but-
definitely buy it at 25. Yes, it is well worth $25.
This is one of those
If not
ones
more.
that to me is proof on the shelf, and no pun intended, even though I just did it, that you can get really good bottles of whiskey at really reasonable prices.
But the $25 to $32 does make it a refreshing category, correct?
We're going to refresh you when we come back after this break, which Walker's telling me I need to take because we've got the 1 minute finger from the corner. And we're going to come back, solve the problems of the world, and figure out, is the conviction that we are seeing going on in 2025 actually what's changing things? Does your yes mean yes or your no mean no? To come back on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. Implicit Bias Radio back on the air. Our yes means yes. And we hope your yes to listen to the show, to watch the show on whatever social media platform you're on is a yes. If you're on KLFY Plus in Lafayette, Louisiana, we appreciate you watching and your yes meaning yes. Let me introduce you to the crew here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. We've got Grant Galatas at the bar of William S. Nacall Jewelers, who appears mesmerized by the four gates in front of him. We've got Renee Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, at the bar as well. We've got Walker Griffon, who we took off of camera because those shorts are too short. And we've got the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse, sitting in the chair opposite mine. And we are trying to figure out why we're seeing all the change. And I believe it's because really we've got conviction behind some political stances today that are actually following through. And what it's yielding the crazies to act even crazier. Want an example? No one showed up really for the No Kings rally. And you're going to say no one. Go ahead. Go ahead, Caleb.
No, I'm laughing because I wanted to schedule what I call a barbecue. And when these protests happen and that kind of stuff, we normally get a barbecue pit out, we start cooking, we invite people over. I put a serpentine in front of the shop. For those of you who don't know, that's a slithery snake driveway to slow people down. We do this little thing. And man, I was all pumped up. I called a few buddies and they were like, this ain't the one. So
the interesting part is, I think if you look nationally, this wasn't the one.
no.
Yeah, but the protests worked.
Oh, did they?
Because we don't have a king.
Yeah.
So they
But hold on.
did it.
Yay!
They did it.
But you have to assume that they meant we actually had a king before.
No, they never said that. They never said that. They said no kings. So we don't have Martin Luther King. We don't have Carol King. We don't have Rodney King.
Well, and look,
We don't have Billie Jean King.
No, we don't have Nat King Cole. I mean,
And who is the guy on CNN?
John King.
no, I don't know.
Anyway.
There was
Well, and
a
look,
king on CNN.
To be 100% true as well, or factual, the United States wanted a king in the beginning.
yeah,
they
well,
did.
they wanted to
Yeah.
call George the king, but
Yeah.
he said, nope, I'm
He
not
refused.
a king.
Yeah,
So-
he
We just gotten rid of a king. They didn't want another king.
Here's the really fun part. The really fun part is this. There are people watching who are going to say, you can't say no one showed up. There were lots of people who showed up.
What's a lot of people?
Well,
Dozens and dozens.
okay, so
Well,
where
in
we live,
Lafayette, we had tens.
Yeah.
let's
No,
be
we
fair.
had what? It was like 100 people, 120 people.
It might
That's
have been.
tens.
It might have been, but hear me
Tens,
out.
per
tens of
capita.
tens.
Per capita, that's like 0.001%.
Hear me out here. Number one, in order for them to have the people they had in Lafayette, they coincided it with another parade.
Yeah.
So essentially, you had two parades masquerading as one, and people claiming this is a big deal. But Caleb, where you went, that's where the magic happens. Math, the math don't lie. So follow me here. Did we have 10 million people show up across the United States? Maybe. You know what? Let's do this. Say we had 30 million people show up across the United States.
Inflated numbers.
It is. But say we had 30 across the country at all of the protests combined.
I'm going to get my calculator.
30 million people. Anybody want to give me a ballpark of what the population of the United States is?
330 million.
So that means that 10% of the population would be 33 million. That math's not hard. All you got to do is move a decimal.
No, it's actually 0.09090909.
Which means that if 30 million people actually showed up, congratulations, you don't count. I'm not going to say you don't count.
Look, we didn't,
right?
Businesses didn't collapse. They did a great job for the economy. They spent money somewhere, not with me, unfortunately. But I don't think those people spend money with shops like me. I also think those people don't know what restroom to use, but that's just so.
Think about it from this aspect, though. It doesn't matter how many people actually showed up, because with social media and the amount of times that you post it and the image that you can create from the event, there's right now there's something, and it's a phrase that I love. It's the marriage between politics and theater. It's political theater.
Yep.
And it's how many clicks you can get, and it's how much attention you can get, excuse me, online with what you're doing. And fortunately, and I say fortunately, not unfortunately, with CNN and the death, basically, of the legacy media, nobody believes this stuff anymore.
So ring the bell, number one.
Look, people are forming their own opinions on this. Somebody said, oh, let's do no kings. And the people around them said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. And they actually put it out there in public. And you know what? I'd like to see how many views and how many likes and how many clicks it got, because that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to put that show out there and see how much attention they can get. The numbers, if it was 33 million, and like you said, that's inflated. How many people do they think they contacted through their show?
Well, I love that you went here, because the reality is you've got to think about the actual percentage of the country that showed up. Because the media, to your point, Grant, will jump on this bandwagon and go, oh, all these people showed up.
No.
Look at what we had happen. Look at the number of people here. I saw the views from Chicago. I saw the views from New York. I saw the views from LA, right? And I don't mean the views, but I mean I saw the physical, actual view of what was happening. And in Chicago, you've got, was it a decent number of people? Sure. But guess what? Statistically, it's insignificant. And the media loves to do this. This is why our yes has to mean yes. Because we look at it and we might think, man, my heart tells me that this is not as big as the media is making it out to be. But the media will have you think that this is the zeitgeist of the entire country, when in reality, no kings is a minority of a minority in the United States of people who actually showed up.
And it was a marketing campaign to begin with. And I don't think it was even anywhere near what it was, because when I walked outside, I didn't smell patchouli and a need for a deodorant. And when you look at the pictures of the people that arrived, like, two things should have happened. Food consumption would have gone up astronomically.
A food truck would have killed it.
Oh, they would have. They could have sold tacos left and right.
No, only if they're vegans. If vegetarian.
No, the people that I saw in these pictures, there's no way you get to be that size by being a vegan. And then, look, and it's hot outside and everything else. And look, like, I didn't recognize a single person there for a reason. So, and look, we can get behind certain things. I don't think that we need a monarchy here in the United States. We don't have a monarchy. I don't think that we should have dictatorships. We don't have any of that. I also would love if we had anarchy, but the problem with anarchy is people like me would come to power, and then we'd end up being our own worst enemy, because we would trample on the weak. And I think that when we looked at this kind of protest, it was a bunch of weak people begging, please trample on me.
This, I think, is the big takeaway, though. And this is where we have to, as society, remember and fit. And it's this. We're letting the media try and convince us that a very, very small minority of people who are exceptionally loud, obnoxious, ignorant, and many times unintelligent and unwise are the majority, that they represent the majority of people in this country. And they don't. They represent a ridiculously small minority of people who, look, and I'm a firm believer, we have to respect the rights of minorities and protect them. We have to respect their rights just as we respect the rights of every other person in this country. But just because you're loud doesn't mean you get your way.
Spray him with a water hose.
Look, it was basically a planning error because AOC and Bernie are flying around the country with it written right there on their podium saying no oligarchs. Kings are an outdated concept. Everybody knows that. And trying to put the label of king on Trump, if it would have been a no oligarchs, I think 90% of the people couldn't spell it, and the other 5 or 8% didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So it's bad because it's just like any other protest. There's so many people that are paid to be out there. So take our generous guesstimate of 30 million, cut that by a third, and maybe
7
to 10 million people were actually out there for some sort of purpose.
And that point now becomes, say you had 15 million, say you cut it by 50%, right? Or say you had 20 million. Now you're still dealing with just over 0.5% of the population who showed up. And this is the crazy part, because we're human. We like to think that our opinion's important. I am well aware that my opinion does not matter. Ask my wife, she'll tell you.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I know I'm going to pay for that later. No, I love you, and I know you don't feel that way. But the point being, seriously, I don't think my opinion is that important. These people do.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part and crazy part.
And what really gives them the power and the strength to keep this up is that they got 50 bazillion likes for their Facebook post. Okay, what does that mean? Because there's really I've never found a dislike button. They would probably have a lot of dislike.
I think that was back on MySpace. I wish we had that. Now we just have an angry face.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have now is getting what's called ratioed, where you get more negative comments and more comments than you get likes. We've been ratioed once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? We have. It happens. But I would love to see the amount of these that got ratioed, because what I can tell you is by gleaning social media where we live and seeing people talk about this, they're just getting slaughtered in their own comments.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the people like us, I wouldn't even bother to go comment on stuff. And I think a majority of right-minded people, they got things to do. They got to go work and earn a living. They don't have time for that foolishness.
And when you say right-minded people, you don't mean like I'm right. You mean like just I'm right between the ears, like my brain actually works.
Yes, I have a brain and I can think and I can use it.
Yeah, apparently Walker does too, because he's sticking that thing out. And by that, I mean the finger, the 1 minute finger, telling us that we got to take a break, come back. What final segment of hour one, Walker, of this week's episode of Implicit Bias right around the corner. We'll tell you about Implicit Birthday, what's coming up. You don't want to miss it. What happened in the Middle East while we were gone? Oh my goodness, Implicit Bias Radio family. We had a show, what we call In the Can, which means it had been pre-recorded a few weeks before. The topics were very, very relevant and very, very important, but they didn't necessarily need to be out there in a specific time. So we took a little week of vacation. And what happened? World War III came and went. Like everybody says one day we're going to have World War III when we didn't have World War III. Then the next day everybody says, oh, we think we've got World War III because we're involved. And then the next thing you know, we no longer have World War III, and U.S. presidents are dropping F-bombs about how upset he is with everybody. I don't mean just one side of this. He's upset with everybody in this conversation. Thoughts on what happened between Iran and Israel in the last week and a half, Renee?
Well, one of the things I want to know is the ceasefire holding. Is it there? I mean, this is as of we're recording today, Wednesday
night.
Yes.
It has held, which is probably a world record for about 36 minutes.
Yeah, well,
I'm kidding.
because the F-bomb thing came out
Tuesday morning.
Yep. Yes. On his way leaving to go to Brussels for the NATO summit.
G7 summit.
Yeah. Yeah. If they can, I mean, these people have been fighting each other for thousands of years. For them to stop, which is one of the reasons why he put.
Renee, we're gonna fight on that one.
Why?
Did you say these people have been fighting for thousands of years? We're going to come back to that in a minute. Finish
Oh,
your
okay.
thought. Finish your thought.
Well,
My apologies.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why Trump dropped the F-bomb, because he's just fed up with him, because they both agreed and then they didn't.
at least that's as far as we know. Grant?
Okay, here's what happened, Renee. A ceasefire was called, and within 6 to 8 hours, Iran fired one missile in the direction of Israel. Now they were
In
talking
that general direction.
correct.
They fought in their general direction, right? I mean, that's what it was.
But what happened was somebody broke it down and said, look, you have all kinds of factions all around the country, and if somebody who was guarding a missile station was in total disagreement with where their leadership was headed and decided to say, you know what, I don't like this concept, and hit a button. Okay, Israel, obviously, once they saw that the ceasefire was broken, they loaded up everything, and from what they said, Israel loaded up the planes. They were going to, obviously attack back.
No, apparently they did attack back and dropped, according to the president of the United States, a massive payload of bombs, like basically unloaded everything they had left.
Yeah, well, I thought Trump got to him. I got to BB and said, look, turn your planes around.
He warned them to do that, I think. I don't know that they did. He said they dropped tons of bombs, massive amounts of payload, massive amounts of ordnance.
Okay, here's what I don't understand.
Okay.
Everything happened. And what did, what did he say? He went on CNN and said, turn the planes around. And if you're saying that it went through, I didn't get that part.
Yeah, no, look, there's a lot of what people like to call the fog of war around this information.
Okay, but what happened when Trump, I lost my train of thought again.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. Have a couple more whiskeys.
Because I was really confused because they launched back at us. There were 7 missiles, 6 of
Those
them.
are to Qatar.
6 of them,
Right?
6 of them we shot down. But I've never seen in any kind of conventional war or any other kind of war where they posted and said, we're going to hit back at you, and it's going over here.
I like where you're going.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's why I was so confused. I've never seen warfare where on social media, our leader communicates with their leader and says, "Oh, thanks for the warning as to where your missiles were going to fall."
Okay, hold on. We're going to go to Caleb real quick.
But that's all on social media, so I don't know what to believe is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, Caleb, and then we'll continue the conversation.
So the military installation in Qatar, all of a sudden I can't remember the name. It is a horrible place, first and foremost. I've never felt heat like I had my entire life. But what we had is what I call posturing, okay? How many people were injured and wounded whenever we bombed their nuclear facility?
None, apparently.
So how many people do you think work in a nuclear testing facility and that kind of stuff? More than 0, right?
Probably a lot.
Yeah. So we have a strike that we performed. Day or nighttime, there would have been someone there. No one's injured. How do you think that happens? We have what's called OPSEC, operational security, where we try to keep things close to the cuff and not share information to divulge it. But if you were going to play the political game and you want to let your enemy know, hey, I told you, don't cross this line. You crossed the line. I'm going to give you a black eye in the next 30 seconds. Please be prepared for it. I am going to strike you. That's the political side of the coin. We held up our end. We did what we said we were going to do. Their response, well, sir, I'm a guest. We're going to reply for our political gain. We want our party to look at us and think we stand for them, when in actuality, we're playing the political game with the bigger opponent. We're going to launch back at you. Where are you going to launch? Well, we're going to go to Qatar, a place that is surrounded by desert. All around that military installation is desert. We're going to launch. We're going to send them. We have what's called the CRAM there and some other things. You can Google that and do what you will with it. And we're prepared for it. How many people were injured in ours?
None.
When did we evacuate them?
Within, hours before the strike hit?
24 hours before the strike hit. So what we have is people playing chess or checkers, telling each other the next move. So that way we, as the onlookers, are intrigued by the fluidity of the game when we don't hear the volume.
So I am 100% with you, Caleb. If you think, and our president has said, they called and told us they were going to strike. They said, you hit us, we have to hit you back because we have to save these things, right? We have to save face. We've got to have respect. We've got to have our reputation on the world stage still sit where it is. So we're going to hit you back. If you think that we probably didn't call them and tell them, hey, chill out, or we're going to do this, and then called them and said, look, you can't stop this. I'm not going to give you enough time to get all your stuff out, but we're going to wipe out this location. You can still get your people out. This whole thing to me was the dad at dinner in the movie Boomerang, right? You got the mushroom shirt, you got the mushroom belt, bam, you got the mushroom jacket. You got to coordinate. This was all coordinated to me.
How do you explain the convoy of trucks moving in and out of Fort Al on Thursday?
They were probably trying to get some things in and out, but they weren't getting.
So they had 2 days advance notice before that?
They probably did. There's no doubt they had some advance notice, and let's face it, it also is a nuclear facility. You probably got convoys going in
and I'm sure,
and out every single day.
I'm sure they expected something was going to happen because, Trump told them, you got 60 days. So what happens on day 61? They get, Israelis come in, and then Trump says, we told you no nukes. We're not going to allow you to have nukes. So they were probably going, we need to clear this stuff out.
That's why, to me, this whole thing was coordinated. And look at the brilliance of what the coordination might have actually accomplished. So, Renee, I told you and I were going to fight over this. Renee, you're old enough to remember this, and this is not an old joke.
It's not a joke about Abraham?
No, because I quasi remember this. Iran, in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, how many wars did they have with Israel after Israel was created?
Oh, no.
None.
No.
Right? You had the Shahs running Iran, and Iran was
the Shah.
The Shah, right? Well, but
who put him in power?
Oh, we did. There's no
of course.
doubt.
Well, I mean, we're horrible at setting up other people's governments.
Yeah, we're terrible.
We have failed. We have 100% failure on that.
I saw a really interesting historical perspective on this, which is Iran got along with the world.
Oh yeah.
Forever.
Remember,
forever. It was Persia before it was Iran.
Yeah, right.
And not that the Persians didn't, hate the Greeks and all that, but my point is, modern day global relations, they didn't have any issues until the Shahs were overthrown. The Shah was overthrown.
And I'll tell you the reason for that. Because when they put the Shah in power, he modernized that country. They
westernized them.
Oh yeah, they westernized, but also modernized. Their economy was booming. They were good friends of the United States. We sold them arms. Everything was good until 1979.
Yep.
When the Ayatollahs, this Ayatollah Khomeini and specifically, decided to take over and they deposed the Shah.
Interesting story. The Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, I've done my best to verify this. So again, please don't believe us on this. The Ayatollah Khomeini, do you know where he was living before he went back into Iran? Anybody? And what he was doing?
Paris.
My understanding is he was in Paris and he was broadcasting on whose networks his messages back into Iran.
Yeah, that I don't know.
The BBC.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yes. And why was he so upset with the Shah? Anybody know? Was it because they were modernized?
They were modernized and they were losing their...
That's not the story that I read.
Oh,
so
really?
what I'm going to tell you is alternate theory. The Ayatollah Khomeini's father was taken out by the Shah because his father was a revolutionary. And it's a personal grudge that the Ayatollah Khomeini brought in 79 and why he preached into Iran his message of change, 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 and why he personally hated the Shah, which means that if, and this is a big if, again, please don't believe us, if that's why he was so upset, it's not a religious issue.
No.
It's purely a personal grudge and a political grudge.
Yeah, but now he's gone. He's dead and gone.
But
and
his believers,
Yeah, other Ayatollahs have taken over and they've kept that power and kept it going.
Walker's given us the 1 minute finger. I got to tell you, remember, Implicit Birthday at Rock and Bowl July 12th is coming up. We are expecting over 50 different whiskeys for you to be able to taste. If you come to Implicit Birthday, the VIP bar is even more. It covers food. It covers music. It's going to be a great time as we donate money to the Evangeline Council Scouting, Acadiana Veteran Alliance, Catholic Charities of Acadiana, St. Michael's Shelter, near and dear to our hearts. Go to implicitbiasradio.com. The link is right there to go buy tickets. Come back in hour 2 and we'll tell you even more right after this. Hour 2 of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We are diving back in here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret podcast layer where, look, if you want to go get a great cocktail special, $15 Sinatra Old Fashions, and $25 flights of 4-gate at Mr. Lester Steakhouse down at Cypress Bayou Casino. Trust me, you don't want to miss that. And then have a steak, have a side, have a dessert, have an appetizer. Absolutely one of the best meals you will get. The only 5-star restaurant between New Orleans and Houston is Mr. Lester Steakhouse.
But remember to book a room because you're going to need a nap afterwards.
Yes, you will. Welcome into the Top Secret Podcast, Larry, the TSPL, as we like to call it. You heard the voice of Renee Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. Sitting at the bar next to Renee is Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers, one of the OG crew of Implicit Bias Radio. Speaking of the OG crew, he is Caleb Morse. Playing with a pen over there? I thought you had a knife.
It's an ink pen that I'm fidgeting with.
As opposed to a lead pen, which would be called a freaking pencil.
Valid point. This one is black ink, noir.
Okay. And then, of course, our producer sitting at the production table. He's Walker Griffon. You can't see him. You're welcome. I'm Kevon Bordelon. Welcome into Hour 2, which is, as we say, always more fun on the show. Why? Because we've been sampling weekly whiskey for a little bit longer on the show. All right, Renee, let's start here. Because I want to go into a question about what cigars would you put with this. This, as we talked about, it's a solid green, which means everybody in the crew would buy it, at least, if not seek this out. And it's got light honeysuckle. It's got some caramel to it. Caleb apparently thinks it smells like snickerdoodles. I think he's just hungry. Where would you go with this one, with a cigar?
This one, because of the light strength, I was sitting there wondering, thinking, and just out of the blue, Casa Magna, Connecticut.
Why?
Oh, Connecticut is a nice light wrapper.
It's a nice light wrapper. Casa Magna is my buddy Manuel Casada in the Dominican Republic that makes it. He's the one that makes Florida Gerards for me. I've known Manolo for 25 years. They make great cigars. And just that they came out with the Connecticut wrapper probably about 2 years ago. It's just a lighter cigar with this whiskey. You don't want a cigar that'll overpower your whiskey, but you don't want your whiskey to overpower your cigar either. So you kind of need to balance that. And I think with this lighter flavor, that Casa Magna Connecticut would be great.
Renee, we were having a really interesting discussion before the show about the changes in tobacco products over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Cigars, if I'm understanding this correctly, they really haven't undergone a lot of generational change over time. It's still just cured tobacco leaves.
Yeah, it's fermented, aged tobacco, no additives other than the flavored cigars.
Okay.
And most of the flavored cigars, that's all food grade flavorings that they put on them. And I'm not really a big fan of those. I like tobacco flavor. But regular handmade premium cigars, there are no additives to it. It's fermented, aged tobacco.
Which brings
the way
us,
it should be.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, which brings us to the question.
Cigarettes back in the 40s and 50s and before, they used bright Virginias and Burley tobacco. It was flue cured, which was a heat cure that they would do in the barns, and that was it. There were no additives, flavorings. That they actually blended tobaccos to get the flavorings they wanted.
But not today.
No. Today there's over 400 chemicals that is allowed to be put in cigarettes, which always amazed me. You know, the government approved these chemicals that they could put in so the government can regulate and outlaw that. You know, it's kind of stupid to me.
It brings you down a really interesting rabbit hole for people who like to go down that nicotine rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fact that human beings, we've been smoking stuff for
when Columbus,
very long time.
When Columbus hit Hispaniola, Europe in the old world didn't know of tobacco. They didn't know it. Columbus is the one that saw the Taino Indians in Hispaniola snorting tobacco smoke. The way the Indians did it, they would throw the leaves in the fire, and they had a tube that would come up and go up both their nostrils, and they would put the tube towards the smoke in the fire, and that's what they would inhale the tobacco. That's how they originally started smoking tobacco.
Really? What was it like? Because I know you were there.
Well, I was there with Columbus. You know, I watched him. It was like, wow, man, that's weird. No. And, you know, and from there, they brought tobacco back. And then, you know, Sir Walter Raleigh, the big English dude, started bringing tobacco back. In fact, United States colonies, their big export was tobacco. That Virginia and all of that area, they were growing tobacco for Europe, for the British.
For snuff and for all that other stuff.
Sniffing snuff was a big thing back then. Cigars, pipes, not as much cigarettes. Cigarettes was much later invention. That was 1500s, 1600s in Spain that actually the cigarettes.
I didn't realize
started.
that cigarettes have been around that long.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't popular here, but in Spain they started doing cigarettes. But it's just, I mean, tobacco's got a big deal, and everybody's all worried about nicotine. Everybody talks about, smoking and nicotine. Guess
Has
what?
benefits.
Well, guess what? Nicotine is very similar to caffeine. And what else has caffeine? Coffees.
Everything.
But guess what else has nicotine? Most people don't realize.
You were telling me this. This is why this
and
is
you
fascinating.
were, you were just.
I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah. Have you ever eaten a potato? Guess what? Nicotine's in it. Have you
Really?
ever eaten a tomato? Guess what? Nicotine's in
I've
that.
never had a tomato. I've had a tomato.
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 Have you ever had eggplant?
Yep.
Guess what? That's the highest in nicotine in those three
Now, when
categories.
you say eggplant, you mean like the little symbol in your phone, or like
No.
real? Okay.
For real.
Only
for-
Caleb would go there.
Yes.
Because we
I was
know
just-
you've had that eggplant.
I was
Caleb.
curious.
for real eggplant. Sliced, fried, stuffed eggplant. Oh, it's great.
It is. It's delicious.
A lot of nicotine. Well, not a lot. Not as much as tobacco.
Some.
But because all three of those, plus a tobacco, is a member of the nightshade family, and that's where all that nicotine comes from.
It's still a fascinating conversation about where tobacco started,
Yeah.
where cigarettes and pipes and cigars started, and where they have progressed to today.
Yeah.
And what, again, we have managed to take something that grew out of the ground that was just fine the way it was
Yep.
and go, we need to do all this other stuff to it.
We need to add stuff to it.
Some chemist decided that it needed to be a certain way as opposed to just letting Mother Nature do what
Yeah.
it does. And we're not going to profess that we are, we're not doctors. We're not telling you that tobacco
The
is always
first doctor
good for
wasn't
you,
a
right?
doctor.
Correct. But the whole point is, what we're telling you is stuff has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah. And our government allowed that to happen.
Sometimes our government mandated it,
Yeah.
which is the really crazy part. So we are trying to do our best to let our yes mean yes and our no mean no on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. And we have to get into this topic because this is going to take up probably more than one segment on the show, especially after we had that great lesson on tobacco from Renee. And it's this one. It's the story that the minute things popped off in the Middle East, everyone here seemed to forget. And man, when you want to talk about strange things are afoot at the Circle K, it's really strange things being afoot at the 7-Eleven, which apparently led to being the CEO of an NGO somewhere on another continent, and then leaded to the death of a lawmaker and the lawmaker's family, and the attempted assassination of another lawmaker, which happened all in Minnesota. So did everybody in here follow this story at least off the get-go?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what story am I talking about?
I don't remember the guy's name, but he showed up at first. It was the female representative's house.
Yep. State lawmaker in
Yep.
Minnesota.
And he was in an appointed position. He was actually worked for a security division. Showed up in a what we'll call patrol car in a security uniform. Knocked on the door. I don't remember what he said. They said he tried to mumble something. Shot and killed them both. Police were called to that location. They knew that there was another lawmaker within a mile or two. The police show up at this house in time to see the same man doing
Yep.
the same thing, engaging them.
Apparently had him at gunpoint
Had already
outside
shot
the
him.
second
Yep,
house
had already shot him.
and let him go in.
Yep. They exchanged gunfire, and he took off on foot.
And let him get away. This has got to be one of the strangest stories that I think we've ever come across because of the political narratives. So there are lots of things that you would say are coinkydinks going on with this. So the two lawmakers were shot, were Democratic state representatives in the state of Minnesota. So let's start there. They are apparently the only two Democrats to vote against the party line.
Well, I'll be.
What, the day before?
Yep.
In a big vote in the Minnesota House of Representatives.
I'd be curious to see if anyone votes against them again.
So,
just thinking.
That's how Pelosi kept her side together.
Iron fist.
Iron fist. The iron.
Okay.
They just don't go against the line.
So look, that's coincidence number one. And we're going to call these coincidences. That is coincidence number one. Coincidence number two. The suspect worked for the governor of Minnesota, who, by the way, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, for those who don't know, was the vice presidential candidate for the Democratic Party in the 2024 election, Tim Walz. So this guy worked for Tampon Tim and assassinated a sitting Democratic state representative. That's coinkydink number two.
Did you read his
Don't
appointment
upset.
letter?
Hold on, we're going to talk about that in a minute. That's coinkydink
Don't
number
upset
two.
the governor because it's
Coink-
hell to pay.
The real
Coinkydink
governor.
number three. Does anybody remember the vice presidential debate in which Tim Walz said, "I'm friends with shooters"?
Yep.
And I believe that was the debate,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
right? Tim Walz said, "I am friends with shooters."
Yes.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on. Wait, what?
Well, what he meant to say
Uh-huh.
was he was friends with families of like Sandy Hook and the not the shooters, the victims. But he failed to mention the victims. He said, "I am friends
Okay.
with shooters."
That is a hell of a Freudian slip.
Yeah.
It is a hell of a third coinkydink here. Now let's go to the fourth coinkydink here. The fourth coinkydink. For legal purposes, right? The alleged assassin, because he is alleged to have committed these crimes. We are not saying he is a criminal. He has been charged with these crimes. The alleged assassin was working at a 7-Eleven. Anybody know what his next job was?
Before being hitman?
Correct. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Well, he was the head of a security firm, wasn't he?
He went from working at a 7-Eleven to being the CEO of a non-governmental organization being funded by the U.S. government in Africa.
So he wasn't. There was.
I believe it was afterwards.
Okay.
So he went from 7-Eleven to being the head of that organization. That's a huge promotion.
No, 7-Eleven was a cover for him. That's what it was.
Could have been. Okay, that's coinkydink number 3 or 4, which ties us into coinkydink number 5.
Well, at what point do they stop being coincidences?
Oh, I don't know, but coinkydink number 5 gets real interesting. He sent a letter to the FBI before he did any of this. Anybody read what that letter said? Please don't believe us on this one.
So it's kind of like what we did to Iran and Iran did to us.
Except
he sent a letter.
except the people that he hurt didn't know he was coming.
he didn't let them know, but he let other people know.
Follow me here. The letter that he sent, this is what he alleges. And please, there are multiple news sources. I mean, the Daily Mail picked this up. The New York Post picked this up. I mean, you had lots of people pick this up. He alleged that number 1, he was trained by the U.S. military off the books. That number 2, Tim Walz asked him to kill U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar so he could run for her seat. Please don't believe me on this one. Caleb, you're over there shaking your head because you read it.
I read it, and man, if it's true, first off, good on him for diming him out if it is true. If I'm going down, you're coming down with me, Susan. So it's pretty impressive. Like, it really is. That's all I can say about it.
So what do you mean impressive? I mean,
Like the efforts that individuals will go to attain power.
I want to know, did Chuck Barris train this guy for his his training?
look, he might have. You never know. And this is the crazy part, Grant.
I don't know if y'all remember this. It just happened last week, I believe. Tim Walz was doing a speech somewhere, and he said, with everything that's going on, I think it's pretty clear who we have to rely on for our moral direction in these difficult times.
No,
And
I
he
didn't watch that
And he
speech.
said, it's China.
What?
Do you remember this? Do you remember
Keep
this?
going.
I don't know where to go from that. I mean, that pretty much says it all. Tampon Tim continues to just impress me with, with the levels of stupidity that this man will go. You know what I'm talking about, though, Kavan.
When everything's going wrong,
He was-
double down.
Well, he was sitting on stage somewhere talking to some lady, and I don't know what the forum was, but he actually said, in these difficult times, I think it's pretty obvious that the people we have to turn to for moral clarity is China.
Well, and China's been in the news in the last 2 weeks as well.
But with his 30 visits to China and his alleged appearance at Tiananmen Square when all that was going on.
Oh, I totally forgot about the Tiananmen Square issue.
Tampon Tim. I don't know what to say about this guy. He continues to unimpress.
Well, I mean, you got to deal with a guy who was a war hero and can't operate his own shotgun when he's out hunting.
Hold on.
Like he always does.
Hold on. You say war hero
Well, that's what he said.
because there are lots of U.S. military.
He said he was a war hero.
There are lots of U.S. military who say that when he was about to be deployed, he waited till he was going to be deployed to retire
Yep.
so he could walk away and not have to
But
go.
he claimed that he was in the front.
Here's the deal. He served.
He served, but he didn't do what he said he did.
Respect the service. Yeah.
Look, I know some completely messed up people who serve too, right? And look, I'm grateful to anyone that raises their hands. We had a guy that joined whenever I was in, that the whole reason he joined is because he thought you can drink when you're underage. So just remember that just because you serve doesn't mean you're a war hero and doesn't mean you're a genius.
You know what else you can do? If you're serving, you can serve the crew of Implicit Bias. You can take a break and come right back as we continue hour 2. And we are going to get into that Chinese connection, Grant, and why that's in the news, because ring the bell. The conspiracy theorists were right again. And we are going to tell you how and why as we continue Implicit Bias Radio. Implicit Birthday is just weeks away. It is the 5-year anniversary of Implicit Bias Radio, and we have to throw a party. And guess what? We're not just going to throw a party with multiple weekly whiskeys. We're going to throw a party that raises money for some great organizations around the Lafayette, Louisiana area. We're going to raise money for the Acadiana Veteran Alliance, for Catholic Charities of Acadiana, and for the Evangeline Council Scouts. So let's tell you how you can get tickets. You can go to our website, www.implicitbiasradio.com. The link is the first clickable link right there on the screen. It will take you to the Rock and Bowl website where you can buy tickets. Your $100 gets you a cigar if you want it. It gets you food. It gets you beer and wine. It gets you 8 tastes of whiskey, and gets you admission to live music. Not just from Effigy, who's opening up the night, but also from Spank the Monkey, Acadiana's favorite 90s rock and roll band. Many of us here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL remember the days of them playing all over here. And man, they almost hit it big. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You never know when one of them is going to show up here on Implicit Bias before Implicit Birthday. Get your tickets. You won't want to miss it. The main room, the main $100 ticket, should get you an option to pick from over 50 different whiskeys to taste from.
How many did we have last year?
Somewhere just under that. I mean, it wasn't much under that.
It was impressive last year. And the fact that we can step it up a little bit this year's even more impressive.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking forward to this. I really am.
It's going to be a really fun night at Rock and Bowl. Looking forward to everybody being there. The crew will be there. You can hang out with us. The birthday cake from Gambino's. We love what they do. And I'm told that Eli Tate is doing something really special this year. So we'll see what happens there. Also want to thank our sponsors, Dupree Carrier Godshaw for Implicit Birthday, Cajun Treats sponsoring Implicit Birthday, PB Energy Logistics sponsoring Implicit Birthday, Ritter Consulting Engineers also sponsoring Implicit Birthday. Oh, by the way, you also get a whiskey tasting glass when you show up. So you get a lot for your $100, and you get to help out some really good causes.
And I think that's the beauty of it too, is with all these amazing sponsors we have stepping up, they're not just doing this because they like us. They're doing this because
That's obvious.
They're doing this because they have a heart for giving.
Yeah.
Right. And they want to make sure that their legacy is an impactful legacy upon the community. All of these people want to see Acadiana better and want to make a difference in your life, our life, and everyone else that we interact with. That's the beauty of the people that we partner with.
No, Caleb. They just want to come see you.
Oh, okay.
Look, I am a handsome guy.
They
I'll
want to
give
meet.
myself that.
They want to meet the Tan, the Myth, the Legend in person.
And
I'll
we
take that.
just had people try and give tickets back. Anyway,
That's what that alert was?
Yeah.
www.implicitbiasradio.com. The link is there. It will take you to the Rock and Bowl website. You can just go straight to the Rock and Bowl website, find the event on July 12th. A fantastic event. Tons of fun. We're looking forward to seeing you there. So in the last segment, as we roll on in hour 2, we were talking about letting your yes mean yes, your no mean no. And we thought we were maybe meaning yes, and we were all in when it came to us saying, you know what, we've got to stop the crazy progressive leftism trying to basically erode everything in this country. And maybe we just didn't realize how bad it was until some people started noticing some things that were happening. And Grant, you brought up China when you were talking about Tim Walz just a minute ago. Tim Walz has now been accused, allegedly. And look, this could be the rantings of an absolutely crazy person. To walk up to somebody's house and assassinate them, to assassinate their spouse, and then go to somebody else's house and shoot them, you're obviously not right in the head.
Well, hold on. Just because somebody does something wrong doesn't mean that they have a mental problem. He may have been completely lucid.
He might have a moral problem.
Yes, and it
not,
could be
not
a
a
moral
cognitive problem.
Right.
Fair.
'Cause he may have been 100% aware for this. I mean, to carry this act out is most definitely a sin problem.
Oh, there's no doubt there.
But I am very certain he knew 100% the gravity of the actions that he was going to take.
Let me see if I can get this out. It's a strange dichotomy because I don't think Tim Walz is smart enough to organize something like this. Yet I think he is definitely stupid enough to pull it off.
Well, and they're
This is where I'm confused.
ring the bell. That was because the reality is
I'm torn, is what I'm saying.
you'd have to be an absolute idiot to go, man, let me take this guy who was working at a 7-Eleven. We can put him in charge of a non-governmental organization, send him overseas, do all this stuff, bring him back. I can appoint him to work for me because Tim Walz did that. And then I could maybe see if I could convince him to go kill some people for me. I mean, but then you go, well, it is Tim Walz. So, okay.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
I get it. This is where we are.
But you know what? Wouldn't you take it wherever you can get it? I mean, it kind of brings the Crooks kid into mind.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a young, impressionable loner kid. Why not? I mean, anywhere they can take it, basically. Whoever you can recruit to do this sort of stuff that you can isolate yourself from any responsibility.
But this is where the big thing comes in for me. And you brought this up and you played it for us during the break, which is a great takeaway. When Tim Walz, I believe it was a debate, said the only place that we can go for moral authority and who has the moral right is China, the Chinese. And it's like, wait, what? And then, I mean, he said so many things in debates and in public appearances. I mean, he did so much stuff. And then on top of that, I had forgotten, and I'm glad you brought it up, about him being a school teacher and somehow finding the funding to go to China 30 times while he was a school teacher. And allegedly he was there during Tiananmen Square. He admitted to the 30 trips to China while he was a school teacher.
We'll do math real quick.
Now all of a sudden you're going, okay, why did someone keep paying for him to go back to China?
Hey, wait, take it a step further. Why would Kamala have picked him?
That's a whole nother question.
Exactly. It kind of widens
but
the
it
scope.
could be tied into the same conversation.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it kind of widens the scope, but hey, that's a bunch of rabbit holes that are worth looking into.
He's got a Chinese connection, obviously.
Well, yeah, Renee.
He's got a Chinese connection, obviously. That's why Kamala picked him, because look at the ties that Biden had with China before.
Okay. We're going to press pause on that because that's where we're going.
I want to get there in the guard whenever he was doing that, right?
I believe he was still in the guard doing some of that, which, to be fair, could mean that he was operating on behalf of our government, maybe. That's a possibility.
I'm doing math right now, trying to figure out how much you paid on flights. But maybe he was flying Space A on a C-17. Okay, hold up. I'm still doing math. I want to figure this out.
Let's go to where China has also popped up this week. Now, we are not saying that correlation equals causation here. We are not saying that these two things are definitely connected. What we are saying is, ring the bell. The conspiracy theorists were right again. And here's why.
And this is another theory.
Well,
It could be true,
This one
but
comes,
it's another theory.
This one comes from the acting director of the FBI. And some of this is not theory. Some of this is absolute fact.
I'm tired of us being right, man. I really, it sounds bad, but I'm tired of it.
In the last
we're tired of winning.
In the last 7 days, the sitting director of the FBI testified under oath that the FBI was given credible evidence that the Chinese government was mass producing driver's license in 2020 so that they could, what, Caleb?
Why would they be doing this?
What could you get with a driver's license
Well,
in 2020?
if you're Chinese and a driver's license, you wouldn't be driving cabs. So maybe the ability to vote.
And this was the active, credible evidence that the FBI was given. Walkie, give me the finger. You can take that, stick it, because we're getting just here. What, are we in segment 2 or 3 of hour 2? Oh, we got time. Okay, so we're going to go here. We might have to shorten the other 2. But the FBI was given credible evidence that the Chinese government was mass producing driver's licenses in order to get mail-in ballots, to inject these mail-in ballots into the 2020 presidential election.
I wonder who they voted for on those.
All right, that is where we're going to take the break. We are going to come back. We're going to dive into this topic because there's a lot here. There is a lot of there with this as you get into this and you start going, all CNC Music Factory when we come back on Implicit Bias Radio. Implicit Bias Radio rolling on, sampling weekly whiskey, which has apparently disappeared from the table next to me. So hour 2 is going to be more fun. No, it can stay at the bar, guys. We're fine with that.
No, please take it.
Yeah. All right. So we were having and just getting into a really great discussion at the end of the last segment as we bring you, this is the penultimate segment of Implicit Bias Radio, correct? The second to last?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay. So for the crew here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair, let me tell you who's going to chime in on this. Quick, brief re-intro. In the chair like mine, he is the rustic renegade, the tan, the myth, the legend, Caleb Morse. At the bar, you've got Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers and Renee Girard of Piper's Haven. They are our 2 sponsors that make each hour happen in reverse order. So Renee's the first hour, Grant's the second hour.
That was good. That was good.
Wasn't wrong.
No, it wasn't wrong.
Then zip it.
I like when you make mistakes like this.
Zippy long stopping. I didn't make a mistake. There was no mistake there.
Oh.
It just happened to be that Grant was the first, me going left to right as we would typically read. So
Okay,
I went
okay.
Grant, then Renee.
Well, that's how we read. That's not everyone else reads.
Correct. But it's how we read. It's our implicit bias.
Okay.
Zippy long stocking. Anyway, so we were diving into the fact that Kash Patel, the sitting director of the FBI, stumbled upon evidence that the former director of the FBI was given credible evidence that China was mass producing driver's license in 2020 in order to obtain mail-in ballots or in order to inject mail-in ballots into the 2020 election. Now, let's start here.
Christopher Wray, for the uninformed.
Yes, Christopher Wray was the sitting FBI director at the time. Let's start here. In order for this to be believable, we would have to have, probably some ridiculous number of votes in 2020 that we never had in any other presidential election.
That just showed up overnight because that's when the mail got delivered.
Wait.
We did.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
We did.
This is my shock face. So you're telling me that we had an abnormal number of votes in 2020?
Yes.
The
Very
best
interesting.
turnout ever. Ever.
For the best turnout ever, everybody showed up, right? I mean, these were people who went to the...
Including people that weren't registered.
Wait. So you're telling me that, well, then how did all these votes get into the system? How did they arrive to be counted? I mean, what was the format? Was it a digital format? Did they vote online?
No.
Someone just has to feed it into the machine.
How did they get there? I mean, what was the physical conduit for them actually going from the person who was allegedly voting?
Wouldn't that be the U.S. postal system?
Wait, it was mail?
Yeah. Yes. Mail-in ballots and depositing
So wait,
voting boxes.
can't
You
be.
can
Like
deposit
people
ballots.
showing up with bags of them.
Just
So-
putting them in.
Can't be.
Ballot stuffers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now you're telling me that what a large percentage of the population has been screaming now for, let me do some math, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, almost 6 years?
Come on. We said that when the election happened.
Oh, I know we did.
Yeah.
I remember that.
They weren't listening to us.
Yeah, well, them and our wives, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's what happens. Again, my wife who edits all this, she knows I love her. She knows I make these jokes. But the reality is, when you look back, and I don't want to say that looking back, we are now all of a sudden finding correlation. What I am saying is, We were told. Anybody remember the narrative when people said, hey, this election was fraudulent? What
There
were we
was
told?
no interference.
Well, we were told some very specific words. 3 very specific words.
Please vote Democrat.
No. Safest election ever.
Which was 100% wrong.
I mean, it was
Oh,
like,
yeah. And Dominion said, no, nobody tampered with our machines. There was nothing to do. There was nothing. And they might have been true, except for people making fictitious ballots, stuffing them in the boxes.
and mailing them in. And the FBI,
Was in on it.
the organization, yes, the organization in charge of investigations of national crime, right? Of federal crimes, which this would be a federal crime, took that information and hid it and said, yeah, we're not doing anything with it.
Right. And you see, you made the comment that they were involved. They weren't. They just didn't do their job.
Well, I mean,
They knew about it and didn't
Okay.
do their job.
That's-
because
that's-
the job to complete it, yes, we have this information. We looked into it and we're going to do nothing with it. That's
Renee?
where they didn't do their
So,
job.
Renee, I'm going to ask you a question.
What's that?
Grant tells me, you know, Kavan, the next time you sit me next to Renee, I am going to stab him through the temple with an ice pick. And I put him there. And I don't tell you, and I let him do it.
See, you're
What is
not,
the-
as,
what
you're
is
not
the-
as nice as a ram.
we used to tell
What is the
people,
legal term for that? I am complicit.
Yes.
Yes,
I am a
yeah.
part of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's not a theory.
Yes.
It's a conspiracy.
Well, they didn't do their job.
right?
They didn't complete their
it's,
job.
it's
No,
passive,
they were part of the crime.
It's
which is
passive
different.
terrorism.
Yeah.
We used to tell people all the time, look, just because you're not the one pulling the trigger doesn't mean you don't know who is. And you can provide information or not. It's your choice. And this, we had a federal agency whose job is supposed to be protecting the American people, which obviously that's not their creed or their job, by what they swear by, who did nothing to protect the integrity of the election for the American people.
They actually did worse. They hid it.
Yes.
They concealed it, which, by the way, is usually called aiding and abetting.
Yeah.
Okay, good for them, not for us, right? They can't get themselves in trouble, but they'll go after you for it.
I'm going to ask a different question. The sitting director of the FBI receives evidence, credible, which is what we are told today. Please don't believe me on this. Go look this up. Receives credible evidence of foreign interference in an election on our soil. And instead of the FBI director investigating and doing his job, he conceals it and hides it for years. We're not talking, he went like, oh, I didn't see that for a month. He put it in a closet and went, it's not coming out, hopefully, ever. I'm of the opinion, if I'm sitting on a jury, I'm of the opinion that that crime starts with a T and ends with a reason. And does anybody remember what the crime or the punishment
Should we
for
bring back-
treason still
Should
is?
we bring back
Hanging.
the firing squad?
Hanging.
The punishment for treason is still death by hanging.
You know, and hanging's preferred because it's cheaper. It costs money for the ammunition. Rope you can reuse.
Valid point. Valid point.
I mean, I'm halfway expecting Headley Lamar to be up there and go, can you squeeze him in? I'm all booked today, but I might be able to squeeze him in, right? I mean, for those who don't know the Blazing Saddles reference.
Next Tuesday looks wonderful.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
do we not potentially have a former FBI director who might be involved in treasonous activity because now when we start going down the auto pen scandal,
It's gonna be more than just
Yeah,
one
but
person.
come on,
too.
look at you honestly think they're going to go to that point? They're not. Because there's a lot of other people before this that should have been tried and nothing happened. So nothing's going to happen with this, which is the bad part about all this.
this is where my yes means yes. I want people accountable
Yeah.
for what they've done. And if they have done in an
You do the
appointed
crime,
federal
you do the
position,
time.
if you are in an appointed federal position and you have a responsibility to the American people and you, for political reasons, hid evidence that the American people were usurped in an election, you need to be held accountable for it.
Well, imagine if there was 100% transparency and accountability in government.
Oh, look, nobody's perfect.
I know.
I am willing to let things that are not massive breakings
You can-
of the law go.
you can
This
make
is
a
massive.
mistake. You can make a mistake, but this is not a mistake.
Yeah. Agreed.
This is,
That's a great call out, Renee.
know?
This is intentional. Grant?
yeah.
There's a general blanket that throughout history, whenever something of this magnitude happens, they throw out the blanket that says this would not look good for America. And it's a very simple statement, but it's absolutely true, because when it goes this high and it involves this many people, going all the way back to JFK, there will never be any accountability for something of this magnitude. There just won't.
Here's where,
As much as we would like for there to be, there won't.
here's where my yes means yes. And it's this. Would it look bad for us to say, yeah, it happened? Would it look better for us to go, yeah, it happened and we caught this? And guess what's going to happen to them? Because if you do this, this is what we're going to do to you.
Yeah, but
Right?
it sets a precedent.
And as a
wish we
Catholic, I've got a real issue with the death penalty, right? Because you can't believe some of it and not believe the rest of it. On the same hand, there is the law of man and the law of God. The law of man has been broken, and this person has hurt other people in order to advance his own political agenda, and that does not fit in our implicit bias. We're going to come back, close out hour 2 of this week's episode, and don't forget you can get bonus content by subscribing on all of our podcast platforms. We're going to have some bonus content. I think we're going to do AutoPen on bonus. AutoPen is going to be a fun conversation on bonus because now we've got another name that was allegedly running the AutoPen, and this one had no business running it. And in the next segment, to close things out on this week's episode, the balls are falling from the sky, and they're ugly, so don't look at them. We'll be back. Balls are falling all over the place on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We've got the Rustic Renegade, Caleb Morse sitting across from me at the bar, Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers, Renee Girard of Piper's Haven. Off camera, you're welcome, is Walker Griffon. When I say balls falling from the sky, so this story started initially pretty funny in that some people actually suggested that there were some large orbs that fell from the sky in Middle America, and people were claiming this is like the lighting fixture falling in the Truman Show when he started to realize that he was on a set the whole time in the movie. Then you start to see reports of orbs in South America and orbs in other places on the planet, and they try to start tying these stories together. And a lot of times I just think this is how rumors go and get started, and how sometimes we just don't check because, like the X-Files says, I want to believe. So let's start with the big balls falling from the sky in Middle America. Turns out it is apparently the dome from a Doppler radar system that just wasn't secured properly and ended up with a big gust of wind somewhere else. So this is your power Doppler 10 that wasn't taken care of.
Some maintenance tech lost his job.
You would think. Right? Funny how things like this happen on the internet and you're like, oh, somebody claims it's this. Somebody claims it's that. But then you have legitimately these orbs that are being seen in other parts of the world. And you're like, okay, are we really going down the rabbit hole of, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
The first documented, alien sighting or UFO sighting was in Louisiana. And then look, orbs, everything else. We have things called the aerostat that we've been using for years to spy on people, which is a blimp. There are smaller versions of other ones. And then there's all this UAPs, the unexplained aerial phenomenon.
We put Rosie in orbit?
She floated a little bit.
Okay.
We found her buoyancy point.
Renee, I thought you had, like, Ireland apparently had an issue, right?
Yeah, they're still pissed at us for allowing or shipping Rosie over there.
Okay.
They cut the supply of Jamesons to it now.
You were going to chime in, Renee, when we're talking about these orbs.
The orbs, when you look at places like Ecuador and Peru, and guess what? They don't have the power Doppler 10 down there. So what is that? Why are those features on the ground that you can only see from air?
The Nazca lines.
Yeah. Dude, there's something out there.
Well, and
There's gotta be something
You
out there.
also have, I believe it's Peru, where you have Puma Punku.
Well, and even in
I did not
Egypt,
poo-poo. I said Puma Punku.
but even in Egypt, they have some of the drawings and stuff in the pyramids that looks like astronauts in spaceships.
Yes.
And this
Helicopters. And other things.
There's something with that.
You have major cities like Göbekli Tepe where the masonry can't be duplicated today. We can't do this today. We can't fit stones together today. And just by how seamlessly they are cut,
with our technology
correct,
that we have.
the seams that they are cut, stone on stone, it's waterproof.
Yeah.
We can't do that today. No mortar,
And you
nothing.
look at how did Egypt have pyramid technology and the Mayans have pyramid technology at about the same time, yet they had no way to talk or communicate or go back and
because
forth with
they weren't
you.
smart enough to do it.
Share
Right.
information. It was just
Allegedly.
shared.
You're right.
Yeah, we weren't. They
Somebody
weren't the,
told them.
They weren't the ignorant people that we believe existed at the time.
No.
And when you think about shared information, shared technology, look at the depths of some of the foundations for these ziggurats or pyramids. There are a lot of similarities, right? So if we had a group of people that would give us intelligence information and then share that intergalactically or interdimensionally, whatever you want to call it, it really starts to make you really wonder and see that we aren't alone. And when you look at how are we not alone? If you believe in angels, if you believe in the fallen, if you believe in God, then you believe that things exist that we can't explain. And if you were an individual who didn't know how to speak of certain things, we've talked about this in the past, you would call somebody by that an alien as well.
Well, by definition, an alien is a being not of this world.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had God, if you had an angel, if you had a Nephilim who came to this dimension, this planet, whatever you want to call it, by definition, they are alien to this world. And it would fit in really well. Grant?
It's funny because what Caleb was saying, I think the basic presumption is back then people were so, they not necessarily ignorant, but they weren't as advanced and didn't have the machinery and the materials that we had. But even in Egypt, some of the aqueducts and some of the irrigation systems that they came up with were seriously advanced for the time, not having any kind of heavy machinery and,
Okay.
and those things. And astrology.
Let's go here.
To come up with the calendars and,
Yeah.
and the seasons without telescopes, without any of that, just by mapping the stars. It's not that these people were ignorant. They didn't have the technological advances, but some of the things that they did, given their limited supplies of advanced technology, was incredible.
Okay, so you say they didn't have advanced technology. I'm going to argue this. Some of the stones that are at some of these historical sites are 200 tons.
Yeah.
There was
and of
something
course,
advanced there.
we can't move a 200-ton stone today over length of space and place it as perfectly as it's placed in some of these. Yet, we are told to believe that these stupid people somehow got a bunch of people around a big rock and moved it, cut it perfectly, laser-like precision, or better than laser precision, placed it perfectly, and did it over tens of hundreds or thousands of miles.
At least until Chevy Chase knocked it over with his car.
Correct.
But somebody or something back then did all of this, and they don't exist today.
Yeah,
Whatever,
that's the big thing.
whatever.
Do we think it just stopped and went away?
Yes,
or were they like,
it helped. It helped the ancient peoples, and just is no longer here. They did what they did and left.
or is it that they helped them and they were like, you know what? They screwed that up.
Yeah, we out of here.
Or did a group of people get a hold of the information and say, man, we don't want everybody having this. We want to hold it. Because if we hold it, we have all the power. We have all the power. We can harness all the money. We can harness all the wealth. And we can make this world just about us.
Well, that sounds very believable, actually.
That does not sound like a human being at all, does it?
No.
I mean, we're a messy species. We've talked about this. We know this. But this, to me, seems more like the road that we would go down. It's a really interesting conversation as we start to get to those levels, because the technology that had to be utilized in order to build what these allegedly primitive people built, while it might have been very different from the technology we have today, it almost certainly surpassed a lot of our technology that we have today in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, gee, those people, the studies are out there, please don't believe me on this, peasants work less than Americans do today.
They wanted them happy.
Correct. They worked less. So was it all created as a control system? Which, if you believe it, if you don't, that's your implicit bias. We will be back next week We will talk to you more about Implicit Birthday. We're going to remind you of the pours you can get, the $15 Sinatra Old Fashions at Mr. Lester's, the $25 flights of Fourgate. We're going to tell you how you can get your tickets for Implicit Birthday, which is www.implicitbiasradio.com. Go there, click the link, buy your ticket, come see us, come celebrate, donate money to a good cause, and sit back, relax, have a pour or 5, and enjoy your Implicit Bias. We'll see you in 7.